Hi, my name is Nicole Alifante, and I am one of the founders and the president of Cure. And today we have with us someone who's running for the Board of Education here in the Mamaroneck Union Free School District. His name is Lauringle Mitchell, and he's otherwise known as LoLo. So welcome, LoLo. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you for having me on tonight. Definitely appreciate it. Thank
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and
you.
please then cap that with why you're running for the board.
Okay, so as you just said, my name is Lauringle Mitchell, also known as Lolo. I'm a resident of the Mamaroneck for 39 years. I also worked for the district for 22 years. So then I attended the Homics and the high school. I'm a graduate of MHS in 1993. After that, I went to UMass. I earned a football scholarship to UMass, and then I graduated from there in '97 with a bachelor of science in political science. So my work experience with the school, as I said before, I worked for the school for about 22 years. Um, my primary job was a campus supervisor. So with that job, we had the chance to encourage and support each student coming into the building. I was able to do that at both the Homics and the high school. Then I also, during that time period, I worked as a substitute teacher, a substitute custodian, and I also as a substitute aide in special needs. So why am I running? So with the history or the ability to look at the district through many different lenses, I feel that I could give a very insightful new perspective to the board. Um, I think we need to increase or make a little bit more transparent our lines of communication between the board, students, staff, and the superintendent. Also, I think there's important work, continuous work on equity, diversity, and inclusiveness in our schools. Um, I also think, well, that's primarily the reasons that I'm running.
You've been in classrooms, in hallways. I feel like you also did some football coaching
I
that
did
I've
coach
heard. Yeah.
for a season. I was privileged enough to do that also.
That's
Uh, yeah,
incredible.
so it's we moved to Mamaroneck, I believe in '82, and it was a life changer, but it was also an adjustment. Um, a social adjustment. Clearly, when you move somewhere new and you don't know anyone, you have to create networks, you have to create friends, and co-op camp is a very important part of being able to bridge a gap for me of not knowing anyone. And
Mm.
still to this day, I think the camp does an excellent job of bridging that gap between for kids who are just trying to figure things out. And the STEM does a great job with the camp, and I definitely I had a chance to work with the camp a couple summers ago, and the the camp still has that same feel. So I'm very excited about that.
That's amazing. So, like, with all things kids, you've been there. You've just like, what buildings were you in
I
your
was in the
career
comics,
here?
and yeah, the comics in the high school primarily. I think I spent most of the time, like 17 of the 22 at the comics.
Mm.
So
Okay.
again, the comics is it's a unique time period for a child, and so trying to help children, again, as I said before, figure things out and encourage them and support them in a proper way is very important. And I was able to do that. And oddly
Yeah.
enough, listen to an old man like me.
Yeah, that's like a tricky time. I remember middle school. So I'm gonna push us along a little bit because I want you to be able to answer these questions. So Cure exists to expand education around systems of racism and inequity. And so how do you think our district can expand that education around, systemic racism and inequity? And how will you as a board member lead in bringing people together with differing opinions in our district about the importance of talking about racism and inequity?
One, you have to be a good listener, and being able to hear each side of the story for everyone. I think what you do with Cure is very important. It's regard to literature, being able for people to see and read different points of view in regards to whether it be systematic racism or just racism itself. It gives you a platform to be able to have the tough conversation. I think that's a lot of the times we're in our emotional mind. That's what we call it at my job, where our emotions lead our thought process. But
Mm,
in regards to working towards systematic situations, we have to be able to assess situations with data and with structural situations, be able to have a clear assessment. Um, in the one training I was able to do, that I think the town hall might be a great way to segue into some conversations or fruitful conversations, and then be dialogues, like I said, instead of monologues. Um, that's a way that we can try to like I said, at least listen to what people really have on their mind. As for structural or systematic racism, yeah, you just examine practices and procedures that might exclude parts of our community.
mm.
So for me, it's all about inclusion instead of exclusion, and this is something that we've got a lot of work to do. We are working, and we just need to continue to push forward.
Okay. So is there something, I mean, is there something specific that you've seen or that you can point to that i- is inequitable in our school district? And again, like if not, that's okay. What I'm hearing you say is that there's personal and there's structural, and either way, we need to bring the community to the table and start having conversations. But is there one thing you can point to that's been weighing on you?
Um, in regards to looking at
To inequity, to like if we
the
could say there's
equity,
something inequitable
yeah,
in.
I think in my final days, I wanted to see more attention focused on what I call the non-college bound student.
Mm,
So it, not all of us are going to go, okay, and that's not a bad thing. I think we need to be that's another conversation that we have to wrap our minds around, and that's fine. So I thought that we need to be able to support our non-college bound students, whether it be through more BOCES programs, whether it be um, maybe through the trades, to try
mm,
to encourage them that this is okay. Okay, maybe that's not for you, and let's try to find another way or another avenue for you to continue to be productive in your life. And look, we have our internship with is great at the high school, something that we've
mm.
put together, and it's really blossomed. So there are things that are definitely there, but we want to find ways to continue to encourage and like I said, support our children in whatever way a direction they decide to go.
I love that. You do as a trustee to ensure decisions made by the board are inclusive to the needs of all students and families.
Mm, I think we have to have the tough conversations first, and they're not tough. I think it's important that we continue with the equity model that is there. Um, we might want to look at more diversity in staffing and hiring also. Um,
Mhm,
and just find creative ways to engage all students in regard to diversity and inclusiveness.
mhm.
Want to make sure that all of our students feel comfortable in the different buildings they're in and being able to support them on a regular basis. That's the way I could see that really happening, so that all of our students feel comfortable, no matter who they are. And I think there's been some divisiveness on who's who and who's what and etc. And I think the only way we can work towards trying to get rid of that divisiveness, we have to have better lines of communication.
So the goal of these of an equity audit, right, is to identify institutional practices that produce discriminatory trends and data that affects students. So schools, I am reading here because I didn't memorize these questions. Schools
So it's
and
fine.
districts, schools now and districts have been conducting audits to analyze data in various key areas such as systems and structures, quality instruction, student achievement, hiring practices, like you said. So do you believe the Mamaroneck School District should engage in an audit type process, and why or why?
I toyed with this one back and forth, trying to really find the answer I was comfortable with. So I just kind of came up with two scenarios. I think with an outside audit, it'll provide you with the district with the valuable impartial data so that the district can come up with the proper assessments and be able to analyze key system structures. Okay, so the flip side, even if we come up with the assessments and through the audit, we still have to find a clear, concise way of implementing them within our school systems. And who's going to do that? How we're going to do that? So I think the question is more than meets the eye, and it needs a tremendous amount of data and thought just to even ask the question. I don't think it's out of the question, no, because I think when you're talking about systematic again or structural, you have to have numbers to back that. Okay, you can't, it's hard to just use that, like I said, emotional mind trying to analyze those situations. So I'm not going to say a yes or a no here in the long run, but I think it's definitely something. If I'm able to be elected, that would be a great conversation on something that we might want to think about.
Absolutely. And I think I heard you say earlier that to this last question, how will you incorporate voices that are often left out of decision making in our community? I think you mentioned town halls. And please tell us how people, please tell us how people can find out more about you. That's the next question. But so how will you incorporate those voices? I love the idea of town halls, but what else? What else is in there for you?
I just think for me, and it's just say within this campaign, I just think there has to be ways that we come together to listen to other people's points of view or perspectives. Um, Nothing's worse than guessing on someone else's perspective or assuming someone else's position. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. So with candid conversation, fruitful conversation, we can at least start to make some proper moves in regards to the right direction, which I think there are some that have already been made. But again, avoiding the monologue. That's
Mm,
where that okay. And
mhm, mhm,
sometimes we get on our soapboxes and we think we've got the answer. But I encourage everyone, to really have the ability to listen first, speak second. And once you're able to do that and put yourself in that person's shoes and be able to really understand what that person is going through. And that was something that the campus supervisor job, that was every day. We had to meet the kid where they were. Didn't matter what my day was like, didn't matter what my night was like. We had to meet that child, whatever their difficulties were, whatever their issues were. And I worked with some great people and great staffs. Whatever we had, we had to make it work. And I think we have people who can make it work. Um, I think we have to get our our community involved a little bit more in the equity team itself. We have to get some layman's people, some just regular folk, as I would say it, involved in that because they're just as much a part of the district and what we do as anyone else. So we have to make sure that if you're going to be fair, everyone has to be involved in that process of decision making. Otherwise, it doesn't look very good.
Love this thing that you say, not a monologue, a dialogue, which is incredible. That makes perfect sense. Town halls, expanding our empathy for each other in this community. Who, right? Who are we, and how do we hear each other? So I think that's amazing, Lauringle. I'm very excited about your run, and we wish you the best of luck. Can you tell us how people can find out about you?
All right. So mitchellruns.com.
MitchellRuns.com.
MITCELLRUNS.com. That's the website. You can see my positioning there on different viewpoints. And And again, if I will be out campaigning, we'll be door to door, and we'll be in different parts of the community. So we hope to see people as we continue to try to get the word out. And I wish all my candidates and fellow candidates the best of luck. And you know, just hope for the best.
Yes, yes. Okay, so in case I cut you off while you were saying it, mitchellruns.com, mitchellruns.com, and Mr. Lauringle Mitchell, aka Lolo, thank you so much for being here tonight.